NFL Week 12 is here, and you're watching the 4Ps, parlays, player props, and predictions. That's the name of the game. In this video, I have a couple player props, couple parlays that I love for NFL Sunday. You guys always show a ton of love on this video, and I appreciate it. If this is your first time, my name's Austin from Calling Our Shot. Thank you for tuning in. As always, we begin the day recapping how we did the previous day betting the NFL. Technically on Thursday Night Football, a 1-0 day. Najee Harris under in rush attempts. That game was insane. The snow, everything. Hey, we'll take a sweaty but a cashed nonetheless for Najee Harris's under in rush attempts. His yards was sweat-free. We'll take that. Let's move on into Sunday, continue that momentum, and hopefully sweep the board on Sunday. You guys in? Like I said, do me a favor, go down below, like and subscribe. Certainly helps build the channel and gets this video out to more and more people on YouTube. Another way to help support the community. Two final notes. Number one, I'll have another video with more player props posted Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern time. 5 more player props. I give myself 60 seconds to explain each of them. I encourage you to check it out. I love the card we have this week. In this video, we only have a couple plays. That video got 5 more. So go check out that video at 6 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. Set your alarms, or it might already be live by the time you're watching this. My last note, whatever. Underdog Fantasy, you guys know we love them. Underdog right now has a Matthew Stafford free square for him to get 1 yard. And if you sign up using my code COS, you can put all these player props that we talk about in just a second into it, and you can get a match on your first deposit up to $1,000. So I encourage you to use code COS or link in the description. Another way to help support the channel. Appreciate you guys. Code COS, bunch of other signups down below. Let's dive into the picks. And of course, we begin with this week's anytime touchdown parlay. These were printing money earlier this season. We lost 2 or 3 in a row. Obviously, there's still good plus money. Hopefully, we can bounce back this weekend. And I love all 3 of these guys. 3 running backs: Kareem Hunt, James Conner, and Christian McCaffrey. Currently plus 421, parlayed together on FanDuel, all 3 to get into the end zone. Pretty self-explanatory why I like these matchups. Kareem Hunt going against the Panthers. Yeah, that's he already spawned in with the touchdown. James Conner, I love his matchup against the Seahawks. We'll actually talk about him. I have a prop for him in the other video that I posted at 6 p.m. on Saturday. And then Christian McCaffrey, I think he has a pretty big workload with no Brock Purdy now. I think we'll see a pretty big game from Christian McCaffrey. More on that in just a moment. I like all 3 of those guys getting to the end zone. Let's lock in that anytime touchdown parlay. Kareem, James, and Christian, do your jobs, get in the end zone. That is a touchdown parlay winner. But as always, we're going to dive into a couple player props. Then we'll wrap up the video with this week's Lions same game parlay. If you don't know what that is, stay tuned. Let's dive into the first pick. It's my biggest play of the weekend. And let's just dive right back into him. Christian McCaffrey over 110.5 rushing plus receiving yards, minus 110 on Caesars. Again, this is rushing plus receiving. If you're like Austin, man, I can't take rushing. I can't take both of them combined. I lean rushing yards, but now with no Brock Purdy in there, really like the receiving yards too. I already like them both. I'm playing this for 1.5 units, my biggest play of the weekend. Now, I won't lie to you. I actually played this before the Brock Purdy news came out. I thought he would be suiting up under center. Now it will be Brandon Allen. So you actually probably get a better line than me. I think I saw some books at 105.5, 108.5, 108.5. Honestly, kind of like it even more with no Brock Purdy in there. I mean, sure, the offense might take a little bit of a dip, but is Brandon Allen going to be chucking it deep? Unlikely. He's probably doing a lot of checkdowns. That's already what I expected from Brock Purdy. But now, last week we backed CMC on the ground, and he barely got done. But I think he has a big game here. In the last 2 weeks since his return, CMC is at 107 and 106 rushing plus receiving yards. So if you get the 105.5, which I want to say was on Fanatics, don't quote me on that, then sure, you cashed in both weeks, but did technically come up a little bit short. He's only averaged 3.7 yards per carry, but look at those snaps, 88%. 94% of the snaps. So Jordan Mason, they don't even care who the other running backs are in the backfield. CMC is in the game for nearly every single play. And this could be a great spot for a breakout game on the road in Lambeau Field against the Packers. Now, the Packers defense has been pretty solid, but where they've been really good is not where CMC is really good. In fact, since week 6, the Packers have held perimeter wide receivers to the 3rd fewest receiving yards per game, but during that time span allowing 4.5 yards per carry. So they've been a little bit susceptible to giving up yards on the ground, but the wide receivers against them have had no success. I mean, they have a slew of great cornerbacks and a great secondary there. That's pretty good for us. We don't want the wide receivers getting a ton of yards. Ideally, if he drops back to pass, Brandon Allen, that is, doesn't find anyone open, boom, dumps it off right to CMC. Last week, CMC, 0 receiving yards in the first half, ended up getting to 27. So he could have easily hammered his live bet, which was 15.5 at halftime. But last year, we saw CMC over this line in 14 of 19 games, 74% of the time, averaging a little over 128 rushing plus receiving yards. That included a playoff game versus the Green Bay Packers. He had 98 rush yards and 30 receiving yards, so easily cleared it there. Sure, playoff game. This is not a playoff game, but in that game, 7 receptions on 12 targets. So he was heavily involved in the pass game. Just couldn't really get anything going there. I think this is a big game for him. I think he'll be needed in the air. I think they'll lean on him even more on the ground. We have George Kittle returning as well. I think Jordan Love and that offense of the Packers will be able to put up points. I like CMC in all the ways. I like him on the ground. I like him in the air. So give me his over 110.5 rushing plus receiving yards, a 1.5 unit play. My favorite play of the weekend is CMC's over in rushing plus receiving yards. I don't care that Brock Purdy's out. I think Brandon Allen can do a good enough job. Just throw it to CMC. Let him do his job. Get the ball to best players. Pretty simple. He'll get the ball to CMC. Give me his over in rushing plus receiving yards. Second play in this video. It's going to be the guy I threw on the thumbnail. Matthew Stafford over 240.5 passing yards, minus 115 on DraftKings. I would play this up to about 250.5. Now, it is only a 1-unit play compared to 1.5 for CMC. If you don't know what units are, just a standard bankroll management term, you can Google it, learn a little bit more about it. Just a responsible way to bet. But let's talk about Stafford. Obviously, he's coming into this matchup coming into this game with a tough matchup at home against the Eagles. Now, Stafford, let's put out some notes here. He's over this line 11 straight games with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both active. He's averaged 300 passing yards per game in those games. Now, why is the line all the way down to 240.5? Because you would expect Stafford to be closer to the 270s. It's because of the Eagles' defense. Since week 6, the Eagles have allowed the lowest yards per attempt passing, second lowest passer rating. In fact, no QB since week 6 is over this line versus them. So then the question comes up, why are we taking Matthew Stafford against them? Well, I think this Eagles defense is overrated. Sure, Eagles fans, don't yell at me. I think their secondary is much improved from last year. Let's give them some flowers. Quinyon Mitchell has been really good. Cooper DeJean, they've been pretty good. Much better than what we saw last year from the Eagles. But sometimes it has to come down to your competition. And the people they have faced right now, the QBs, since week 6 they faced, let's be honest, they've all sucked. And Eagles fans, you should know that. They faced Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, who's a free agent now. What the hell's that? Joe Burrow, fine. Joe Burrow is good. But he didn't have T. Higgins, his second best wide receiver. So what do you want from him? Trevor Lawrence, Cooper Rush, and then a rookie, Jaden Daniels. None of those guys really fear me. Sure, Jaden Daniels looked great. He's still a rookie going up against a very experienced defensive coordinator. At the end of the day, this will be the best passing attack they will face potentially all season. The Eagles cornerbacks have played well. I give them credit. But again, you can play well against one good wide receiver. What about two? When you got Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, two of the best receivers in the league, I just don't know if they're getting it done. We saw this matchup last year when the two teams played. Stafford did go under. He had 222 yards, 21 completions on 37 attempts. So not a very efficient game. But look at the time of possession. The Eagles, 38 minutes compared to 22. Eagles were 13 of 18 on third down. If they don't get some of those third down conversions, you're getting the ball back to the Rams offense, and the Rams are going to be able to get some yards there. So again, everything went wrong for Stafford. He didn't even have a great game there. We saw the last time the Eagles faced a group of wide receivers that actually had two good ones. That was week 4, in my opinion, with Baker Mayfield. And what did he do? 347 yards. A long way ago, almost 2 months ago. But again, I don't see a lot of success having the Rams having on the ground against this Eagles rushing defense, which has been pretty good. Instead, I look for him to throw it a bunch. So Matthew Stafford, I like his over. I also like his other wide receivers too. Robinson, Atwell. He has a lot of good receivers out there. So look, if the Eagles defense shows up here and limits Matthew Stafford below 250, then maybe they might be a really, really legit unit. I still think they're really good, but not as good as I think their numbers indicate. And as far as this number has dropped for Matthew Stafford. So I'll take his over 240.5 passing yards. Eagles fans, go argue with the wall. No one cares. Let's move to our final play of the day, the Lions SGP of the week. We have printed on Lions SGPs last year where they were 10-1. I want to say this year they're 4-2. Don't quote me on that. Maybe 5-2, something like that. This one is a little bit tricky this week because the odds weren't as great for me and I didn't know where to go. So I will throw up the 3 legs on the screen for my Lions same game parlay. And I hope I can at least explain them to you before you go down below and yell something. I don't know. Jahmyr Gibbs, 40 rushing yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 50+ rushing and receiving yards. And David Montgomery, 40+ rushing yards. Minus 131 on FanDuel. Now, if you recall last week, we took David and Jahmyr both 40+. It was like minus 125. Easy winner. You didn't even have to sweat that thing out. This week, we had the same thing. I wanted to do 40+, but that was about minus 145. So my additional leg was Jahmyr, 10 more yards, but for rushing and receiving. So obviously, There is a world where Jahmyr gets 40 rushing yards and doesn't get 50 rushing plus receiving yards. I'm willing to take my chances there because it dropped the juice from minus 145 to minus 130-ish. I'm willing to do it. Sure, it might look weird. Why the heck do we have two legs that are basically the same? I understand that. Why don't you just do 50 rushing yards? I understand that. But again, this is what I'm doing. This is how I feel good about it. I like it at minus 130 better than minus 145. Obviously, they're all going to go hand in hand. Jahmyr Gibbs this season, 40 rush yards in all 10 games this season. He has 70 rushing receiving in all 10 games. So again, I think he's landed in the 40 to 50 range a few times. I think twice. So that's why I'm doing the rushing and receiving. We know he is a talented pass catcher as well, and he's just been an absolute stud. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs will continue to get those 40, 50 rush receiving yards, whatever you need from him. Confident he gets it done. He is just as explosive as it gets. This probably comes down to David Montgomery. Montgomery, 40 rush yards in 6 of 10. The Colts, why I love this matchup for these two. Second most rush attempts allowed, 6th most rushing yards in the NFL. I don't know if the Lions cover this one, but they're able to run the ball on the Colts. The Colts rush defense is not good. Last week, our 2-unit play was Breece Hall's over in rush attempts. He had a great game on the ground, and the Jets punted. They went 3 and out their first 5 possessions. If the Lions go 3 and out on their first 5 possessions, I will record the next week's entire slate of videos with my shirt off. That is how confident I am. They are not going 3 and out on every single possession to start the game. 5 straight. That's not happening. So I like both these two guys. I hope you understand why I took these 3 legs. You could just take both for 40, but again, that is like minus 145. I'd rather throw in Gibbs for another 10 rushing and receiving yards, and I certainly think he can get that done, assuming he already has 40 rush yards. If he doesn't get the 40 rush yards, then we're going to lose regardless. So I just didn't want to include a Monra or Laporta or any Colt for what it's worth. So those are my favorite picks of the day. As always, appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's cash that anytime touchdown parlay. Let's cash these props in this Lions SGP. And then later on Saturday evening, 5 more props. I encourage you to check it out when it is live. I will link it somewhere on the screen. Go check it out. There's other videos for the NFL linked on the screen right now. And of course, if you can sign up for Underdog Fantasy, I would appreciate it. If you can put these plays in there and make some money, hopefully, use my code COS. They'll match your first deposit up to $1,000 and give you a Matthew Stafford free square. Have a great Saturday. Have a great Sunday. See you guys in the next one. Peace.